The Galactic Council's declaration echoed across 17 star systems in perfect unison, transmitted through quantum relays that had carried the voices of civilization for 3 millennia. Ambassador Vexthala of the Hegemony spoke the words with ceremonial gravity, her crystalline vocal cords creating harmonic frequencies that resonated in the council chambers. By unanimous decision of the assembled species, humanity is hereby declared a galactic threat. Military action is authorized to contain this menace before their chaotic influence spreads beyond the Sol system. In the observation deck reserved for condemned species, Captain Sarah Chen watched the proceedings with the calm detachment that had made her Earth's most effective diplomat. Around her, the greatest minds of humanity's government shifted nervously, but Chen simply folded her hands and smiled. The declaration surprised no one. Humanity had been a problem since first contact 60 years ago. Where other species had taken centuries to develop faster-than-light travel, humans had reverse-engineered it from crashed hegemony scout ships in under a decade. Where others formed orderly colonies that reported to their homeworlds, humans had scattered across the galaxy like seeds on the wind, establishing independent settlements that answered to no central authority. But the real issue wasn't human expansion, it was human unpredictability. The Vorthon Collective had spent 2 centuries perfecting their strategy for the resource-rich Kepler 442 system, only to find humans had already established mining operations there, using equipment built from salvaged asteroids and sheer stubborn ingenuity. The elegant Altarians had been scandalized when human traders showed up at their cultural centers selling art, made from industrial waste, and calling it upcycling. Most disturbing of all, humans had begun spreading ideas that threatened the very foundation of galactic order. Concepts like individual rights, democratic representation, and questioning authority had begun appearing in the most unexpected places. 3 different client species had recently petitioned for self-governance, citing human principles of freedom. The Council had tried conventional solutions first. Economic sanctions failed because humans simply created their own trade networks. Diplomatic isolation was pointless when humans seemed to prefer talking to regular folks instead of official representatives. Cultural suppression was impossible when humans turned every restriction into a celebration of rebellion. War was the only option left. Fleet Admiral Korthax had planned the campaign with mathematical precision. The combined forces of 12 major species would overwhelm Earth's defenses within 72 hours. Orbital bombardment would eliminate military installations, followed by occupation forces to establish order. Clean, efficient, inevitable. But as Admiral Korthax learned when the first wave of his ships emerged from hyperspace near Earth, humans had a very different understanding of how wars should be fought. The human defense fleet was smaller than expected, barely 300 ships against his 2,000. But instead of forming the neat battle lines that had dominated space combat for millennia, the human vessels scattered in all directions, moving in patterns that seemed almost random. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "they're not following any known engagement protocols. Our targeting computers can't predict their movements." That was when Admiral Korthax realized his first mistake. The Council had spent so long studying human expansion and human diplomacy that they'd forgotten to study human warfare. The databases were full of information about human art, human trade, human political philosophy, but almost nothing about how humans actually fought. The human ships moved like dancers in a violent ballet, never where the tactical predictions said they should be. They used weapons that violated every principle of efficient design. Kinetic projectiles when energy weapons were clearly superior. Chemical explosives when plasma charges were more effective. Short-range beam weapons when long-range missiles made more sense. It should have been ineffective. It was certainly inefficient. But somehow it was working. The human ships seemed to anticipate his fleet's movements, sliding away from concentrated fire and appearing in unexpected positions. They targeted his ship's weak points with surgical precision, not trying to destroy the massive vessels, but instead disabling engines, weapons, and communication systems. Within 6 hours, Admiral Korthax found himself commanding a fleet of crippled ships, still technically functional but unable to fight effectively. His requests for reinforcements went unanswered, not because they were refused, but because similar scenes were playing out across 17 different star systems simultaneously. It was impossible. The humans couldn't have that many ships, that many soldiers, that many resources, but as reports poured in from every theater of operation, the truth became undeniable. Humanity wasn't fighting this war like a traditional species with a centralized military. They were fighting it like humans. Every human settlement, from the smallest mining station to the largest colonial world, had responded to the invasion as if it were a personal insult. Merchant ships had been hastily converted to fighters. Construction crews had turned their industrial equipment into weapons. Even civilian transports were ramming military vessels in acts of desperate heroism that defied every tactical manual ever written. But the humans weren't just throwing bodies at the problem. They were innovating in real time, adapting to each new situation with a creativity that bordered on the absurd. On Kepler 442, human miners had turned their asteroid processing facility into a mass driver, launching chunks of rock at invasion ships with devastating accuracy. Near Alpha Centauri, a human passenger liner had somehow modified its hyperdrive to create localized space-time distortions, trapping an entire squadron of hegemony destroyers in temporal loops. Most confusing of all, the humans kept trying to talk. Even in the middle of firefights, human captains would broadcast on open channels, explaining their positions, asking for surrenders, offering medical aid to damaged enemy ships. It was as if they saw the war not as a glorious battle between species, but as a misunderstanding that could be resolved through conversation. 3 days after the invasion began, Admiral Korthax received a transmission from Captain Sarah Chen herself. The human diplomat appeared on his command screen with that same calm smile she'd worn during the Council's declaration. "Admiral," she said pleasantly, "I think we need to talk." The meeting took place on a neutral station in the Vega system, with representatives from all 17 member species of the Galactic Council. Admiral Korthax expected to discuss terms of surrender, though he was no longer certain which side would be surrendering. Instead, Captain Chen began with a question that would haunt galactic politics for generations to come. "What did you think would happen?" She gestured to the tactical displays showing the current state of the conflict. "You declared war on a species whose entire history is defined by overcoming impossible odds. You attacked people who've spent their whole lives learning to adapt, improvise, and survive in hostile environments. Did you really think we'd just line up our ships and fight by your rules?" The council members exchanged glances. It was becoming clear that they had fundamentally misunderstood the nature of their enemy. "But more importantly," Chen continued, "why did you think war was necessary in the first place? What exactly are you trying to accomplish here?" That question opened a discussion that lasted for 18 hours and changed the course of galactic civilization. For the first time in 3 millennia, the species of the Council found themselves explaining and defending their positions instead of simply declaring them. They discovered that many of their fears about humanity were based on misunderstandings, while others were based on accurate assessments of human nature that weren't actually threatening. Yes, humans were chaotic and unpredictable, but they were also innovative problem solvers who could find solutions to challenges that had stymied other species for centuries. Yes, humans spread ideas about individual freedom and democratic governance, but they also brought concepts of cooperation, mutual aid, and voluntary association that could strengthen rather than threaten galactic stability. The war officially ended not with a surrender or a treaty, but with the establishment of the Interspecies Cooperation Initiative, a new organization dedicated to peaceful collaboration and mutual understanding. Admiral Korthax found himself appointed as its first military liaison, tasked with developing new defense strategies that incorporated human chaos theory tactics. Captain Chen was elected as the first human representative to an expanded galactic council, where she would spend the next 20 years patiently explaining why humans did things differently and why that difference was often an advantage rather than a threat. Years later, when asked about humanity's victory in the shortest war in galactic history, Chen would simply smile and say, "We didn't win a war. We ended one. There's a difference, and it matters more than you might think." The Council had declared war to eliminate a threat to galactic order. Instead, they discovered that sometimes the best way to preserve peace is to make room for a little chaos. Humanity had taught them that there was more than one way to build a civilization, and sometimes the unconventional path led to places no one had imagined possible.